My favorite comic of last year, or at least one of my favorite comics, was My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. So I had kind of kept seeing this show up in my suggested feed, in like my Amazon. People kept telling me, oh, have you checked this out? And I hadn't for so long. And I kind of picked it up almost on a whim. I put the book on my to-read list and left it there until the turn basically of December. And I'm so glad I picked it up. My Favorite Thing is Monsters is kind of a journal sketch type of story. So it's written and it's meant to look like it is on notebook paper and just very lightly sketched with a kind of journal quality. It's written from the perspective of an 8-year-old girl. Her name is Karen, and let's see her face. This is Karen. And Karen loves monsters. She thinks she should be one. She wants them to find her. And Karen is a little bit of like a dark baby bat, trying to figure out her sexuality, trying to figure out who she is. Kind of for the first time looking at her family dynamic as something maybe other than like this happy situation where her mom and her brother and her live together and like everything's lovely. And when Karen's upstairs neighbor passes away under suspicious circumstances, Karen is left to try to kind of figure out what happened by herself. Along the way, she has to deal with racism, with her budding sexuality, with the fact that not everyone likes her, and of course with the dark kind of internalized ways she's decided to think about herself. She sees herself as a monster. So, there's so much to say about this story. First and foremost, I love the feel of it. It does really feel kind of like picking up someone's art journal and understanding them and the way they see the world. Karen has a lot of people in her life who she will depict for a lot of panels as this kind of monster character who she sees and who she identifies in her world as. And slowly and surely, as she realizes that person's kind of humanity, she will occasionally just show them the way that they actually look. And I think that that's really engaging and really indicative of the way she sees things. Karen as a character is kind of this fantastically funny, heartfelt little girl. She's growing up in Brooklyn. She is really just starting to come into her own, and she's funny, she's sensitive, she's really like well-spoken, but not so well-spoken that it's out of place for a character her age. And she has a lot of heart. She, over time, really goes and comes into her own and sees the characters around her as people who she identifies and empathizes with, even when that's a really difficult thing to do. The art in it is fantastic. I love the sketch style. Occasionally, it will be in these black and white or blue and white panels, and then with these fantastic movie monster type panel inserts that I'm assuming if you had followed this when it was in single issues, if it was ever in single issues, would have been the cover. There's a really fun kind of dark mystery aspect to it. When Karen starts to investigate, despite the fact that she's of course ill-equipped to do so, she starts to recognize a lot of the darker sides of her world. She's always known that things for her and her family are not always easy, but she starts to recognize the racism in the way people see her brother Dees, who is very clearly visually Hispanic. She recognizes the desperation in her upstairs neighbors who are immigrants and who have come to Brooklyn to try and build this new life, and despite the fact that they have been here and have moved in and are relatively successful, they carry a lot of baggage from their past. She makes new friends, but is having to deal with the fact that none of the kids in her school really like her except for this weird new girl who maybe is or isn't real. And I really enjoyed the dynamic of seeing that. I enjoyed watching her have these revelations of like, oh, this thing, this abstract concept that people have talked about as playing into the real world is actually interacting with my life. And you can see her own internal struggles with herself, particularly in a really poignant scene where her brother kind of snaps at her and forces her to admit she's not a monster herself. Which in and of itself, like the concept that she would even see herself as a monster is just heartbreaking. That this little girl who's dealing with so much, just both on a regular normal scale and then also on this kind of larger familial and community-wide scale, sees herself as something to be rejected is really just, oof, right in the heart, you know? It is a chunker and it does not leave off with a clean ending. This is only volume 1. It already says book 1 at the top, so I'm keeping my eye out. I don't know when book 2 is coming out, but this was easily one of my favorite books last year. I think it has a fantastic kind of innocent noir feel with also a very dark feel at the same time. I would highly encourage you to check it out. Let me know if you've read My Favorite Thing is Monsters. I would love to hear your opinions on it, especially its format and its setup and what you think of Karen. I hope you guys are having a fantastic reading week. You guys know the drill. Comment, like, and subscribe. Tell me what you're thinking. I hope you're having a fantastic reading week, and I'll talk to you later.